Right now in Ireland, 18% of all the energy goes to data servers. That's 1 in nearly every 5 units of power. And it's more than every rural home in the country put together. And it's rising quickly. EirGrid is the company that manages Ireland's national grid. It says that data centres could be using up to 30% of all Ireland's electricity by 2030. Ireland's electricity grid connects power, whether that's wind farms or gas stations, whatever. It connects the source to the homes and businesses. That grid has limits. There's only so much electrical capacity that can pass through it at any one time. Once that limit is reached in an area, new connections have to wait. In West Dublin, North Kildare and East Meath, the grid is already full. So new housing estates are being told there's no connection. Ireland has a goal to get to 80% renewable energy by 2030. But here's the issue. There are a lot of renewable energy projects stuck in long waiting queues to get grid access. There are wind and solar farms ready to go, and they are stuck because of grid delays. At the same time, demand from data centres keeps coming. In 2022, the government said there was a moratorium being placed on any new data centres in the Dublin area. They said no new connections unless strict criteria were met. The regulator said that any new data centre could only connect to the grid if it met 4 key conditions. It had to be placed outside of the busiest areas, and it had to have its own on-site backup, like a big battery or its own gas turbine. It also had to show that it could reduce usage if asked to. This was to protect the grid, especially in Dublin, where supply is already too tight. But what the government never explained to you is that no new data centres have been connected under these rules. Not because it was blocked, but because anyone who needed a big data centre was already in the system before the policy changed, while others have been able to bypass the grid entirely by building private gas generators on site. Legally allowed, not renewable. So when you hear exemptions, what that really means is Microsoft already had planning permission to build. Amazon already had grid access. And there's others that you haven't heard about because they've built dirty generators on site. There are server farms that you're not even aware of, burning fossil fuels in your back garden. Moratoriums on new bills are a redundant thing to impose when you have tech monopolies. There is no effective government safeguarding that prevents the same multinational company expanding its existing data servers or building new ones on the land they already own. These government policies do not prevent existing data centers from expanding if they already have a grid connection contract. So that's exactly what they're doing. And Amazon got planning for 3 more data halls in 2023. Microsoft at Grange Castle, which is in a suburban area, is proceeding with its own private gas plant. These are expansions, not new entrants, so they are not blocked by the current policy. Nobody is getting any kind of green energy exceptions. In fact, you have to use your... They are encouraging people to build dirty generators on site. So while these data centers grow, as people produce more and more data every day, other projects like housing estates or community solar projects, even small businesses, they get delayed, pushed to the side, told to wait, told there's no grid capacity. Why does global tech infrastructure get priority privileged access to Ireland's electricity? Meta, Google, Amazon and their AI use are increasing their data centre footprints in Ireland. These buildings are powered 24/7. They require resilience infrastructure. Data centres use water cooling, and they are allowed to draw from municipal sources and groundwater. Parts of Dublin, Kildare and Meath already experience seasonal water stress. New housing estates and community facilities are being delayed due to a lack of water capacity. Meta at Clonee is using at least 700,000 litres of fresh water every day to cool its servers. They are draining the public water supply. One large evaporation cooled centre can use more than 250 Olympic swimming pools of water in a year. The average Irish person uses about 133 litres of water a day. Meta is using as much water every day as 5,000 Irish people. Irish Water is warning that other commercial developments may get rejected as climate change is reducing summer rainfall and large parts of the country are already under water stress. A single data centre uses more water in a day than an entire town. To cool AI models that are developed, owned and deployed by a small group of corporations who are not even Irish. You want to talk about immigrants and Ireland being full? Well, the grid is full, yeah. Access to this kind of AI frontier tech is incredibly centralised. It's a luxury for the rich, and they make sure to keep it that way with licensing and paywalls and enterprise contracts. Yet it's public subsidies that are underlying our infrastructure. It's the Irish taxpayer who was funding grid expansion. It's the Irish taxpayer who was funding these planning concessions. And it's the Irish taxpayer who has to tolerate the strain on services, on no housing, no water, no transport, no broadband, just plumes of dirty smoke coming up out of Microsoft. Community projects, renewable energy projects and housing projects are getting blocked. There's a huge bottleneck on the grid, while corporate AI gets to bypass. Skip the queue. They're bringing jobs. So the state is trying to build renewables and meet this rising industrial demand, but it does not have the grid space to do both at the same time. And right now, there is no legal rule that gives housing or renewable projects priority access. There's no law that says communities get to skip the fucking queue. The government and the regulator are deciding on a case-by-case basis behind closed doors. You do not get to see the full list. You do not get to know who was rejected and why. So even if your solar farm is shovel ready, you're being told to wait. And Microsoft and these other companies are getting priority use. The gas plant that Microsoft is building in Grange Castle is going to produce enough energy that it could heat every home in County Kerry. But these companies are not paying their way. They pay EirGrid a once-off fee, the exact figures of which are not disclosed due to commercial sensitivity, but it's likely around 50 million. They do not pay to upgrade the public infrastructure. They do not pay any usage levies to reflect their disproportionate demand. And they do not even have to pay the same standing charges and tariffs that Irish households and small businesses have to pay. Data centres' massive power use increases overall system and grid costs. But these costs are rarely socialised to the public, and they are certainly not paid for by big tech. The cost of grid congestion, or the curtailment of wind, or extra fossil fuel backups, that falls on the household. And the total estimated system level costs related to grid congestion, wind curtailment, etc. in just 1 year, 2023, is €800 million. So somebody smart can check my maths on this. I'll put the research in the Discord. But Irish households pay indirectly about €200 each to cover the EirGrid system stress costs. Every household in Ireland is indirectly subsidising this drain by AI to the tune of 200 each. And those costs are also growing. In 2020, Microsoft's Irish subsidiary made over €200 billion in revenue, and they paid zero tax. Because on paper, they say they're a tax resident in Bermuda. By 2035, a country with huge amounts of free wind resources will be burning more gas than ever.